Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Police in Nova Scotia have recovered the body of a youth who went missing during last month's devastating storm. We have an update as to how many wildfires are still burning in both Alberta and British Columbia. And Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas blasted the Trudeau government on Bill C-18, which she says is impacting our ability to view Canadian news on social media sites.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. RCMP say the body of a teenage girl who died in the Nova Scotia flooding has been recovered. Police say the rushing floodwaters during the July 22nd storm carried her body around 100 kilometers.
We're working with the Nova Scotia Medical Examiner Service to positively identify the remains, but at this time we believe they are those of the youth who was reported missing on July 22nd as a result of this extreme flooding in West Hants.
Our crew spent the emergency or the initial storm surge Friday night into Saturday. So that exhausted our crews right off the bat. Thankful for mutual aid systems being called in and other services. And then as things progressed Saturday into the search mode into Sunday, again, our crew were on tap, with what we could, but reached out for resources as well. It's quite tiring and quite a long night, so they took a while to charge back up.
Members of the union representing 7,400 workers are voting on a deal that could finally bring an end to BC's long-running port labour dispute. The walkout has impacted billions of dollars worth of freight. Voting is expected to wrap up on Friday at 6 p.m., potentially ending a strike that shut down more than 30 port terminals over the past couple of weeks. The union previously voted down an agreement a week ago, leading to Federal Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan directing the Canada Industrial Relations Board to impose an agreement if it finds the negotiated deal to be out of reach. Wildfires continue to burn in many parts of British Columbia, and the Director of Operations at the BC Wildfire Service says he and his colleagues are still mourning the loss of 4 firefighters who were killed in separate incidents in July. Cliff Chapman says crews are still showing up every day to battle the almost 1,600 wildfires burning across the province, but with heavy hearts. The family of 25-year-old Zach Muse launched a memorial fundraiser in the name of the firefighter who was killed on July 28th in the remote area north of Fort St. John. His death follows the deaths of Devin Gale, who died near Revelstoke, Adam Eden in the Northwest Territories, and Ryan Gould near Hague Lake, Alberta. All were helping to battle the various wildfires. Now, there's some good news when it comes to wildfires here in Alberta. According to emergency officials, we're now down to 110. That is 7 less than what was reported on Wednesday. Rain in certain regions of the province has been helping the firefighters battling the blazes. Just 2 wildfires are still burning out of control in Alberta, and 38 are being held. So far this year, we've seen 936 wildfires in our province. There have been 175 in the Grand Prairie Forest District alone. The Crow's Nest Pass and areas near Banff National Park haven't seen a lot of moisture lately, and this has created some very hot and dry conditions. With little to no humidity in the area, Alberta Wildfires implemented a fire restriction. They've also updated their fire advisory to extreme and are reminding residents to camp responsibly this long weekend.
What that changes is that any of the random camping areas, you cannot have campfires in those areas, only in the designated campgrounds. In those areas where you can have campfires, for more in the northern portions, to make sure that you're keeping them small, fully attended, and extinguished. Soak it, stir it, soak it again. But of course, in that southwestern corner, you cannot have campfires in random camping areas, only in designated campgrounds. Please help us out, follow the restriction. Let's keep everybody safe this long weekend.
Unfortunately, there are no wildfires burning in the Crow's Nest Pass region. Well, it has been hot and dry in many parts of southwestern Alberta lately. Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, any chance we may see some rain soon for our region?
So for our region, the short answer is no, not in the Lethbridge area anyway. As we do get closer to the mountains, though, and the Pincher Creek area, the Castle area, that region could see a chance of showers, also a risk of a thunderstorm on Friday. And other areas of southern Alberta also seeing a heat warning in effect, like the Medicine Hat region. So it really depends on where you are and what you're doing this long weekend. But as for Lethbridge, we're seeing fairly even temperatures, overnight low of 12 degrees, a few clouds in the sky as we get into Friday. Mainly mainly sunny skies, high of 26, not as warm as we originally thought. And then as we get into the rest of the long weekend, we're going to see temperatures somewhat similar to that, along with partly cloudy skies. And I will be back later in the show, Hal, to give you the full 7-day forecast.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. The co-owner of Crow's Nest Adventure says he's quite familiar with the area where a tragic incident took place last week. On July 27th, 2 overdue hikers were found dead at the bottom of a ridge on Mount Coulthard near Coleman, Alberta. The previous day, they'd headed out to hike the North York Tree Trail to see a plane crash site. Now, it's a hike Brent Coinberg says is very popular. Coinberg also points out, however, that hiking past the crash site onto the mountain is where conditions can become more treacherous.
The trail there isn't very well used, or isn't as used as much as the bottom part. And then the big danger on that one is because it's not really well used, it's not marked out. It is steeper. You do have slipping hazards. And then as soon as you get on top, you break that crest. There's some different peaks you can go on to. The biggest danger up there is the wind. If it's blowing slightly on the bottom, it's going to be way worse up on top. And you gain 900 meters of elevation too. So it is quite a bit of climbing. And then to summit, you're well over that 65 to 6,800 foot mark. It's really somber going back up there after this tragic incident, and really puts things into perspective that things happen and can happen to some of the fittest guys and people that have actually been back there, and it can happen to anyone. So just take your time and be safe.
Coinberg says he takes many of his clients up to the summit quite regularly and does enforce that proper footwear and ankle support are essential. The Lethbridge Police Service have brought in a new program that tracks down cryptocurrency transactions. They say it's to help in their investigations when it comes to fraud and those involving virtual cash. The program is called Change Analysis Reactor. Sergeant Kevin Talbot with the LPS explains how the program works.
Tracing using the chain analysis program called Reactor. It's basically what you're doing is you're doing a blockchain analysis of transactions on the blockchain. The program is a program where we will input data. It could be anything from a wallet address to a wallet or to a transaction hash, an entity, name of an entity, or anything like that. And we can then begin tracing from the point that the victim deposited funds into a wallet address to what exchange it ends up at.
According to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, more than $300 million was reported as lost due to investment fraud back in 2022. Ottawa and the City of Lethbridge announced a new deal to support the full transition of our city's transit fleet to zero-emission buses. The joint investment will be close to $135,000. The study will access and I'll have a look at benefits, risks, and constraints associated with the transition to a zero-emission fleet. The federal government will be investing just under $108,000, with the city picking up the tab for the remaining balance, which is around $27,000. Ron Sakamoto has been chosen as parade marshal for Coaldale's Candy Parade. It's part of the town's Summerfest celebrations. Known for his many accolades and achievements in the entertainment industry, Sakamoto, who was born in Coaldale, says he couldn't be happier to have been chosen to lead the parade under this year's theme of agriculture.
We are tied into agriculture so much, and like I said, I grew up on the farm, and we still have the farm in Medicine Hat, although we rent it out because I didn't go into farming. I went into the entertainment business, and my father said, listen, Ron, you do what you want. He knew I wasn't going to be a farmer, but he knew and taught me what hard work was, and really, I got to thank him, because he said, I'm working you hard now, but you wait till later because it's going to help you.
Now, following the parade, Sakamoto will join a panel of judges to pick the winner of the town's inaugural Battle of the Bands contest.
Battle of the Bands will feature 6 different bands, kind of all different genres. There is 1 or 2 country performers, depends how you classify them. And then there'll be 4 different judges. Ron Sakamoto is actually going to be one of the judges for Battle of the Bands as well. So it'll be pretty exciting having him judge for that.
The town of Coaldale Summerfest kicks off on Friday evening, and the parade begins at 11 a.m. the next day. The Alberta government announced that it is going to stop approving all wind and solar power projects greater than 1 megawatt for the next 7 months. Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf says the move is in response to rural concerns about development on agricultural land, the effect on scenery, reclamation security, and system reliability. Alberta has been a leader in renewable power generation, which provided 17% of our electricity last year. Now, the Alberta NDP is not happy with the province's announcement earlier today. They say Premier Daniel Smith is discouraging investments in our renewable energy sector.
Today's announcement will stop massive potential for job creation and new investment. At a time when the cost of electricity and cost of living continue to increase, Albertans deserve access to a reliable, affordable, and low-emissions electricity system. Renewables are a vital part of a thriving energy sector in Alberta. In fact, Alberta is the capital of wind and solar energy in Canada, attracting more than $4 billion in investment in recent years. Think about this. A 100-megawatt wind facility equals $175 million in project development and more than 300 jobs.
The Alberta government also announced that wait times in certain hospitals will be improving thanks to thousands of new community lab appointments being made available. AHS, along with DynaLife, will now allow Alberta Precision Laboratories to offer more community lab appointments. APL usually handles lab work in hospitals, urgent care centres, and community lab services in rural regions. Officials say as of today, Albertans in need of lab services can book an appointment for this Saturday thanks to the addition of 400 new available appointments at the Peter Lougheed Centre in Calgary. An additional 175 will be made available at the Foothills Medical Centre, also in Calgary. Cheryl Seaborn is a registered nurse. She was also the UCP Lethbridge West candidate who lost to the NDP Shanna Phillips in the last provincial election. Seaborn says she learned a lot during her campaign, including the issues that people in our city were most passionate about, which included a doctor shortage. She also says, looking back, there are things she would have done differently during her 7-week campaign.
Bringing people together and hearing their views in town hall type of things, I think would have been very advantageous, actually. It gives you an opportunity to visit with people and get them to know you, which is really what's important, is for people to get to know me and to know what I stand for and how I would represent them, and really get a sense of that, like a feel of that. You know, sending out literature is great. Billboards are great. It shows people who you are by how you look, but it doesn't really tell people who you are and what you represent.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Cheryl Seaborn and myself coming up in the second half of our program. Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas spoke out against Bill C-18 in the House of Commons. That's the bill requiring Meta and Google to pay Canadian news organizations for their content. Now, in retaliation, Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, has said that Canadian news content will no longer be available for Canadians to see. Thomas says the bill is bad since a lot of online news is disappearing.
This bill is a direct attack on Canadians and their ability, and I would even say their right, to access the information that they depend on as timely news in this country. And there is no one else to blame for that shift, that change, that damaging effect than this government. They had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, whether it was here in debate, whether it was hearing from witnesses at committee, whether it was amendments that were brought forward by myself or my colleagues, or whether it was Senate amendments that were made. This government has had plenty of opportunity to correct this bill. And every step of the way, they've chosen not to. And that's their shame. But sadly, it is also the shame of Canadians, because ultimately they are the ones that are punished by this bill.
Dozens of Metro grocery workers in Toronto are walking the picket lines, striking for improved wages and benefits. Workers say their wages need to be increased to $3 to $4 an hour more to remain competitive with inflation. They also say their limited benefits have them choosing between medical care, rent, and food.
We're just hoping like the company will just meet with us, right, like on the bargaining table and offer us a decent, fair amount of wage. Like we just want fair wages and benefit. Because like inflation is really high, and we just want our wage to keep up with inflation. That's all.
People do have mortgages. People do have to. The cost of living is going up, but our wages aren't going up.
We can't afford to buy the groceries that we put out on the shelves ourselves, so we just want to keep up. And I think that just keep up with the world. I mean, it would be great, like $3 or $4 to start, and then like a little bit more over the add on to that over the duration of the contract, like a little bit would be great. I mean, that was kind of keeping up with how things are, and when the pandemic was at its height, they gave us an extra $2 an hour. That really helped out, but then they took that away. Everybody's grocery bill's gone up.
It appears as though there were more reporters than supporters or protesters outside of a Washington, D.C. courthouse on Thursday, where Donald Trump was scheduled to appear before a judge. Trump is facing 4 new charges related to his alleged effort to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Work crews spent the night putting up barricades around the courthouse. There were also snowplow trucks parked alongside the street to block traffic. One supporter had a sign reading "Trump won," while a protester had a sign of their own which simply read "Loser." A judge in Pittsburgh has sentenced 50-year-old Robert Bowers to death for killing 11 Jews at the Tree of Life Synagogue back in 2018. The victims included 75-year-old Toronto native Joyce Feinberg. Bowers ranted about Jews online before carrying out the deadly attack. He told police at the scene that, quote, "All these Jews must die," and expressed pride in the killings. Anita Krishna was working in television as a news control room director. She says she was fired from her job with Global News Vancouver because she questioned the narrative her employer was pushing and not offering proper balance in regards to COVID-19 related stories. Krishna said red flags went up when all of the catchphrases started coming out. She says it almost sounded like they were scripted.
Everything was coming so fast and furious, right? Why were we saying, okay, self-isolate, lock down, don't travel, extend spring break, keep your kids at home, kids are getting this. We were starting to say flatten the curve, social distance. We were starting to say all those things without evolving into that. Those kinds of things take time to evolve. All catchphrases and things like that don't come out of the gate day one. Why did it come out of the gate day one? That's what made me question it. Wow, it's almost like, I'm not saying this is what happened, but it's almost like the script was written.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Anita Krishna, former TV newscast director, and BCN's Naveen Day coming up later in our program. Well, it was a hat and sunglasses kind of day here in Lethbridge. Lots of sunshine and heat. And those seasonal values will be sticking around. Complete weather details are coming up. I've seen so many people in our city enjoying riding their e-scooters and e-bikes, and why not? We've been enjoying some beautiful, incredible weather lately. Jeanette Rocher is here now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, the e-scooter riding weather should continue as we head into the long weekend?
Yes, it's true. And I have to say, I still have never tried one of those e-scooters. I'll have to get out there and give it a try before the summer slips away, as it does so quickly, unfortunately. But we're looking at a fairly decent long weekend ahead of us. High of 26 degrees on Friday, plenty of sunshine. 25 on Saturday with a mix of sun and cloud. 27 on Sunday, up to 28 degrees on holiday Monday. And then down to 23 and 24 on Tuesday and Wednesday as we get back into the work week. Okay, average high for this time of year, 26 degrees, average low, 11:39 was our high temperature. That happened back in 2001. And in 2002, a year later, we reached our record low, which was 5 degrees. Okay, sunlight. We are looking at a sunrise this morning at 6:04 and our sunset this evening at 9:10. We are just over 15 hours of daylight. A fairly sunny one on the west coast tomorrow. Victoria looking at a high of 25 degrees, a bit cooler near the Juan-de-Fuca Strait, more like 20 degrees. Also very windy in that Juan-de-Fuca Strait, up to 60 kilometers per hour. 23 for a high in Vancouver, 29 inland though. Mainly sunny skies, a high of 25 degrees in Edmonton and 27 for a high in Calgary. Beautiful day in both of those Alberta cities tomorrow. As we look to the rest of the province, or the rest of the prairies rather, seeing gorgeous conditions as well. Lots of sunshine, 26 degrees for Saskatoon. Regina looking at a high of 30, and same thing for Winnipeg. Winnipeg seeing mainly clear skies though as we get to the central part of the country. 26 for a high. Toronto seeing a slight chance of showers tomorrow. Ottawa was actually under a tornado watch earlier this evening. As we get into tomorrow, we're looking at chance of showers, could see a risk of a thunderstorm as well. 25 for a high there, 24 for a high in Montreal. Montreal was under a severe thunderstorm watch this evening. Those rains should be clearing up by the morning, but then another 40% chance of showers by the afternoon there. As we look to the Maritimes, 22 for a high in Fredericton, seeing a chance of showers. Halifax, high of 25, cooler by the coast though, 20 to 40 kilometer per hour winds. 24 for a high in Charlottetown, also looking at 20 to 40k winds. Plenty of sunshine, and 22 for a high in St. John's. Much warmer inland though, and lots of sunshine there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
A group representing Canada's land border duty-free shops is calling on Ottawa to drop its repayment requirement for Canada Emergency Business Account loans. Barbara Barrett with the Frontier Duty-Free Association says many duty-free shops are having a tough time recovering from the pandemic when they were shut down and lost out on so much business.
When the Prime Minister and the White House closed the Canada-U.S. land border for 20 months, our locally owned stores were the hardest hit of the hardest hit businesses in Canada. Our stores were 95% down in sales during this historic border closure. By law, our stores could not shift to domestic or online sales. Despite the fact that our stores were shuttered to protect Canadians, many federal government relief measures did not fit our federally regulated structure. And all of this while airplanes were allowed to fly over the border. Today, FDFA released an economic analysis showing land border duty-free sales remain down an average of 33% compared to pre-pandemic as of the July Canadian and American holidays, which are business indicators for the summer and the most important season for our businesses. It is unreasonable for the government that put our stores in the position of requiring the debt to expect repayment when the stores have yet to recover from the long-lasting impact of the government's handling of the border.
Bell saw its second quarter net earnings drop by 40%. It was partly due to increased severance expenses as it began laying off around 1,300 workers. BCE says net earnings for Q2 amounted to $397 million compared to $654 million a year ago. The Montreal-based company says operating revenue did increase from $5.86 billion last year to $6.06 billion in 2023. Bell also attributes its increased costs to a higher interest rate environment and an obligation to repurchase at fair value the minority interest in one of its joint venture equity investments. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 97 points on the day to finish at 20,120. The Dow was down 66 points to 35,215. The S&P 500 was down 11 on the day to 4501, and the Nasdaq was down 13 points to 13,959. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 228 to 81.77 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 8 cents to 256 US. Gold was down 19 cents to 1934.26 US an ounce. And silver was down 15 cents to $23.57 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.16 per bushel, barley's at $8.97, canola's at $17.85, and corn is at $10.30 per bushel. Live cattle were up 48 cents to $178.50. Feeder cattle were up $1.13 to $247.95, and lean hogs were down $1.68 to $101. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.87 US. We have some breaking news for you this hour. Alberta is pulling the plug on bidding for the 2030 Commonwealth Games. The official word came down from the Ministry of Tourism and Sports late Thursday. Officials say the numbers simply didn't add up and the return on investment wasn't there for Alberta to commit close to $2.7 billion in taxpayer money. Cheryl Seaborn is a nurse who also sought to win the Lethbridge West riding during the last Alberta provincial election. She ultimately lost to the NDP incumbent, Shanna Phillips, but Seaborn says she's still fighting to ensure that people in Lethbridge have their health care needs met. We shall hear from Cheryl Seaborn in just a few moments here. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.